How's that possible? I just did 25 last week. How do we get on 61 already?
Many without purpose, so they just meant
20 without
20 of them.
well, 30, well,
Almost 20 verses were without purpose, Guru Maharaj.
Really?
And 2 verses did have like very short purpose. So I just went to the verse which had a really long, decent purpose. So
Okay.
that's how we jumped from like 31 to 54 or something.
I missed all the fun. Was that yesterday you did? No.
Day before.
Day before. Okay. Okay. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Kunja Hidaya Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Hidaya Gopijanna Vallabha Kirivara Hidaya Gopi Hidaya Gopijanna Vallabha Kirivara Hidaya Gopi Yasodanandana Brajajana Handhyadhayasa Yasodanandana Brajajana Handhyadhayasa Jamuna Thira Vare Chahari Jamuna Jamuna Tira Vare Chahari Jamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Kunja Hidaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivara Hidaya Gopi Hidaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivara Hidaya Gopi Yasodanandana Brajajana Handhyadhayasa Yasodanandana Brajajana Handhyadhayasa Jamuna Thira Vare Chahari Jamuna Thira Jamuna Thira Vare Chahari Jamuna Thira Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Jai Om. Vishnupad Paramahans Parivajak Acharya Astottara Satta Shri Sriman His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Raj Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Sri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Sri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Okay, so there's 61 and we'll do the last verse, 62, because it doesn't have a purport, and that'll end the chapter. So 61. Tadeva niyamam shakshat Tadeva cha yadmotamaha Tapodanam vritam yagyo Yena tusyat yaho sajaha Taeva niyama shakshat Tadeva cha yama yamotamaha Tapodanam vritam yagyo Yena tusyat yahok sahajaha Taeva niyamam shaksat Tadeva cha yamotamaha Tapodanam vritam yagno Yena tusyad yahok sajaha. Ladies. Sakshat. Nirvajaya mokshamaha. Janava. You want to try? Devacaya moktamaha Bodhidamrita gyagyo Te. Te. That is. Eva. Indeed. Niyama. All regulative principles. Saksat. Directly. Te. That is. Eva. Indeed. Cha. Also. Yama uttamaha. The best process for controlling the senses. Tapa. Austerities. Dhanam. Charity. Vratam. Observing vows. Yagna, sacrifice. Yena, by which process? Tushyati, is very pleased. Ahoksajaha, the Supreme Lord, who is not perceived by material senses. Translation. Let's see who's. This is Kashypa's now speaking after she finishes her vrata. Okay. This is the best process for pleasing the transcendental Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Ahok Saja. It is the best of all regulative principles, the best austerity, the best process for giving charity, and the best process of sacrifice. Purport. The Supreme Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharmam Parikshadya Smam Ekam Sharanam Praja Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayishyami Ma Suchaha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. Unless one pleases the Supreme Personality of Godhead according to His demand, no good results will come from any of His actions. Dharma swanastito pumsam vikshvaksena kata suyot nopad yadi yat ritim shrama eva hi kevalam. The occupational activities of a man performs according to his own position are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the Personality of Godhead. From the Bhagavatam 128. If one is not interested in satisfying the Lord Vishnu, Vasudeva, all his so-called auspicious activities are fruitless. Ugasya moga karmano moga jnana vicheta saha. Because he is bewildered, he is baffled in his hopes, baffled in his activities, baffled in his knowledge. In this regard, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur remarks, Na pumsakam anupumsakane tyardinai katwam. One cannot equate the potent and the impotent. Among modern Mayavadis, it has become fashionable to say that whatever one does or whatever path one follows is all right. But these are foolish statements. Here it is forcefully affirmed that this is the only method for success in life. Ishwar tarpanam vina sarvam eva vipalam. Unless the Lord Vishnu is satisfied, all of one's pious activities, ritualistic ceremonies, and yagas are simply for show and have no value. Unfortunately, foolish people do not know the secret of success. Nate vidu swargat gatim hi Vishnu. They do not know that real self-interest ends in pleasing Lord Vishnu. Om Gyan Timirandasya Gnanajana Salakaya Chaksun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Staptitam Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mayam Dadati Swam Padantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimakti Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pachale Nirvisesa Sunyavari Pastyatya Desatarine Panchakalpa Taruvischa Kripa Sindhu Vevacha Pritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaho Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we'll read the last verse, translation. Therefore, my dear gentle lady, follow this ritualistic vow, strictly observing the regulative principles. By this process, the Supreme Person will soon be pleased with you and will satisfy all your desires. So, what is, you might think, well, what he's saying is the best of all activities here. Well, that is according to time, place, and circumstance. That was the best of all activities at that time. And here, what is the main thing is that Aditi is successful because she's following her guide, spiritual master. If one wants to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one has to follow the principles given by the spiritual master and execute those as the foundation for one's devotional service. If she was doing something different, she wouldn't be able to please the Lord. One has to please according to the instructions given by the authorities. In other words, Krishna is, as it says here, ahoksaja, and he's beyond the range of the senses. So the senses cannot understand, nor the mind, nor the intelligence, nor even the imagination, what is the nature of God and how to please Him. Therefore, one has to have instructions from authorities. When them instructions are understood and clear on how to apply them, then one is on the path of pleasing the Lord. So in this age, we have been given the instructions to chant Hare Krishna. So that is our method for pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. In this age, it says, in every age there is a means for self-realization. And Sati Yuga, meditation, and Treta Yuga, costly yagya, agnihotras, Dwapara Yuga, very elaborate forms of deity worship. And in this age, it's Harinam Sankirtan. So in every age, there is a standard by which the process is given, and that standard is the means for self-realization. And it is also the way to please the Lord. So if you want to please the Lord, chant Hare Krishna. But chant Hare Krishna with the desire to please the Lord and with the desire to follow the instructions given on how one should chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. There are things we have to avoid in the chanting. One is we have to avoid the 10 offenses. We can chant, but that, if we're still committing the offenses, that is called namaparad. One is getting very little benefit from that chanting. And that really, although the activity is meant to please the Lord, the activity is correct, but because one is not following exactly how to please the Lord in the nature of the activity, one will not get the full results of the activity, especially in the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So many people can chant, but one has to be freed from those 10 plus 1, 11th offense also, which is inattentive chanting. And then, when we move through the purification process, we gradually reduce the effects of our aparads or offenses. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada, in every initiation ceremony, practically all of them, not all of them, but most all of them, he had the 10 offenses recited. Because he wanted devotees to be clear that, yes, chant Hare Krishna, this is Harinam initiation, but there's things to avoid. So by Vedic knowledge, it comprises vidhis and nishedas. Vidhis means things you must do, and of course how to do them, and things you must avoid. If you don't know what to avoid, or you are committing those things you avoid, then the effects of what you're doing will be minimized, and sometimes even destroyed. Just like association with devotees is one of the most foundation in developing our Krishna consciousness, sadhu sangha. But if you commit offenses to devotees in the association of devotees, you are going the other way. You're actually decreasing your progress in devotional service. So, to use that example, the right activity with the wrong mentality or the wrong execution of the activity. So one has to know both like that. But the goal here, as it's mentioned, is to please Hari Toshanam. Toshanam means to please, Hari. Tidas Pumbir Didas Stresta Vibakas Vibak. What is that? Swanustitos the Dharmasya Samsit. No, that's Samsiddhi Hari Toshana. Yeah. One has to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the execution of one's devotion. As Prabhupada really, very thoroughly, it goes through by saying, forget it. Whatever you do, if you don't please the Lord, it's useless, whether it's material or spiritual activities. So, one of the ways to please the Lord is to try to please the Lord. Even if one falls short of the quality of the activity, if one is trying to please the Lord, that is acceptable by the Lord. In other words, just like a father has a little child, the child doesn't know so much about the father, but he's trying to please the father, and so he might do something that is not very pleasing to the father, but he's trying to please. But the father will think, oh, well, he's trying to please me, so it's very nice. Now that's how Krishna is like that. He's very liberal when it comes in that. But unless one has that mentality. So how do you develop that mentality? If one meditates on the instructions of the spiritual master as one's feature of execution devotional service, that is pleasing to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We doing the activity in the best possible way with mind fixed on the activity, because this is bhakti-yoga. Yoga means connection, or, reuniting. So what we're doing is that it's a conscious meditation on spiritual activities with a desire to connect to the Lord. And that meditation comes through understanding clear how to follow the instructions of the spiritual master. That's the foundation like that. One cannot make advancement unless one is understanding because the spiritual master's instructions may come in two forms. One, general ones. Generals are for everybody. When Srila Prabhupada speaks his books, his lectures, he gives a lot of general instructions. And that's for all of us. But then, in his letters, he may give specific instructions, or if he's talking to someone directly, he'll give specific instructions to that person on how to execute their devotional service. So that's a feature of the spiritual master's relationship in some cases, not in every cases. You'll see in our Krishna conscious movement, there are many devotees who got direct instructions from Prabhupada on what to do, execute devotional service, and there's others who never did that, either because they didn't meet Prabhupada directly or Prabhupada just didn't give them a particular instruction. So then, therefore, they very carefully followed the general instructions as given. And Prabhupada said, if you don't know, then you have to read my books and you have to hear from me regularly, then you will learn what is pleasing and what is not pleasing, like that. So the rules and regulations keep us within the confines of the execution of devotional service. The rules and regulations are not bhakti in itself, but they are more or less they're the pathway by which bhakti is executed, like that. But one has to definitely follow the rules and regulations. So Diti, she's being congratulated by her husband here in the very last verse. And then he emphasizes this, and he says, very soon the Lord will be pleased. So in this particular case, he will grant her benediction, and that is, he appears. as Sri Vamanadev, the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So you imagine how strict her vow was. She actually got the Lord to appear. Well, of course, the Lord appears according to his own will, but sometimes, just like we see when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, it says that the time for the Yuga Dharma was there, and so therefore the Lord appeared. But the Lord appeared also for his internal reasons to experience his loving relationship as his own devotee in the mood of Srimati Radharani for Krishna. So you have, a lot of times you have the external reason. The external reason here is Aditi's austerity, Aditi's austerity. And the internal reason was the Lord comes on schedule to perform his activities. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhutanam ne dharmasya tadatmaham srajami aham. Pavitranaya sarunam vinaysanaya shiduskritam dharma samstarpanartaya kam sambhavami yuge. Millennium after millennium. So Krishna, Prabhupada says Krishna is not very difficult to please, but one should have that mindset. Let me do everything nicely for the Lord. But one of the things that Krishna is pleased is he's pleased by devotion. So when you add devotion to any of your activities, that's pleasing. So what is that devotion? Well, I am your servant, my dear Lord, and I'm simply trying to offer this nice little flower. I know it's not very much, but please accept this flower from me as my offering to you. Oh, that little simple prayer from the heart is pleasing to the Lord because it's devotion. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Patram Pushram Phalam Tayam Yome Bhakta Panashyati Tadaham Bhakta Uparitam Asnami Payatat Manaha. So these are Krishna wants to make it clear that it's not so much the offering, but it's the mood of the offering that is really what attracts. Because he owns everything, he controls everything. So there's nothing that we can give him. There's nothing that we can keep for ourselves either. Because everything belongs to him. So so when the Lord is pleased by devotion, therefore the devotee executes their devotional service in the mood of humility and with a desire to offer their activities in a devotional way, like that. Okay, so these are some of this is actually the essential point. And we should always remember that Aditi didn't act independently. She followed very carefully. She had faith that her husband, who was in this case her spiritual guide, was giving her what exactly she wanted, and that was a process for pleasing the Supreme Lord. So she has faith. So we have to have faith in the spiritual master too, not just accepting instructions, that there has to be some faith. The stronger the faith is, the more the instructions become a feature of our day-to-day activity. There's devotees who don't have faith in the spiritual master, although they're initiated by their spiritual master. Sometimes they have faith in other words, they're fair weather devotees. In other words, when they hear the instructions they like, then they are enthusiastic. But when they hear instructions they don't like I was just, I got a letter many years ago, this was many years ago. And I said, I knew ahead of time that this particular disciple wasn't chanting 16 rounds. So I said, you promised to chant 16 rounds on initiation, so you should, do that. And she wrote back, I'm chanting 1 round every day. She was trying to impress me that, I am chanting, Maharaj. I said 16, you said 16 at initiation. Now you're telling me, well, at least I'm chanting. And that's the important thing, right? 1 round. I mean, if you were just new coming in, I would say, well, okay, very good. But since you already made your vow at initiation. So, and then when I wrote back, I said, well, I said 16 rounds, and that was the last letter I got. So then they just shut down. They don't answer. Now, people don't want to hear the instructions a lot of times. Or they have their own ideas on how devotional service. They think, well, the spiritual master's not here. He doesn't know my situation. And even if I tell it to him, he can't understand it because I can't really explain it unless he actually comes here and sees me and talks to me directly. In other words, everyone has their own program of how they execute devotional service. But Prabhupada used to say, my spiritual master's wrong, but he's right. He's wrong, but he's right. So therefore, why even accept a spiritual master if one is not going to follow? What value would that be? You're just wasting his and your time also, like that. But the spiritual master keeps trying to somehow or other wake up the disciple by bringing them back to some kind of a sensibility, that they start understanding that it's important for them, and the spiritual master has nothing to gain by encouraging the disciple to follow. He's trying to help them. Jai Shri Panchatattva Ki Jai. Or some people think, well, I might not be able to do the instructions of my spiritual master, but at least, I give him money on his birthday, and I give him some presents, and I can see he has socks with holes in it, and I know how to buy the best socks. So in other words, they tried to substitute the fact that they're not following with other forms of personal service, thinking that will make up the difference. That's not a conscious thing, but it's more or less a way to somehow satisfy that I am doing something. So you get all kinds, And then there's those who you write to and they don't never write back. And those who write all the time. So you get so many varieties of Krishna consciousness. But the most important thing is that if you're going to accept the process of devotional service, you have to strictly follow the instructions. Otherwise, what is the use of accepting a spiritual master? I'm speaking like this for those who don't have a spiritual master, because we see that everyone gets excited about getting a spiritual master, and then when they get one, things change. It's like, oh yeah, I can't wait to get initiated. I get my name. I join the club. I'm a dasi now instead of just a mataji. I'm a das instead of a prabhuji. I get in higher into the ranks. But that's not the program. Program is strictly following the instructions of the spiritual master. Yasya Devi para bhaktir yata Devi tata guru tasyaita kartita yata prakasanatma mahatmanaha. That verse is a foundational verse. Svetasvatara Upanishad 6.8. It's such a powerful verse. That those who have implicit, now if you know what the word implicit means, that means without any other consideration, implicit faith. In other words, strong faith. Faith that is not movable. Implicit faith in both the spiritual master and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then that faith alone reveals the inner meaning of devotional service in the hearts of those persons who have that faith. So that faith is the foundation for the execution of successful devotional service. Without that, and therefore one has to associate with the spiritual master either through his words or through his personal presence, because in the personal presence you also receive the words and like that. You know, I know devotees, if I ask them to do some service, they'll do some service, but don't ask them to chant. Don't ask them to read the books, and they'll be able to do that. They call themselves disciples or aspiring disciples, but then, so this is Kali Yuga. No one really understands the relationship with guru and disciple. But real relationship means to meditate on the instructions of the spiritual master and also learn the mood of the spiritual master. What is his mood? To understand what, like a lot of times the spiritual master will not say anything, but the devotee should know the mood of the spiritual master and what he wants, even though he doesn't say it. Because the spiritual master is not always there to always give instructions on practical things, but one should know what to do and what not to do. That comes. But at least one should have that mood. Otherwise, now here, you can see Kashyapa is so pleased. He's so pleased that because he's so pleased, obviously the Supreme Lord will also be pleased, because Kashyapa is pleased because she did his instructions to the best of her capacity in a most devotional way. What more can you ask for that? And then he said, very soon the Supreme Lord will be pleased with you. And when he's pleased with you, he will satisfy all your desires. So here's the key, that if you want to satisfy our desires, not material desires, but those desires for Krishna consciousness, simply try to satisfy the spiritual master and satisfy. And Prabhupada said the spiritual master is very easy to please. He's not, a hard guy will make it difficult for you. He makes it easy enough, but when it comes to the basic principles, he doesn't marginalize that. Chant 16 rounds every day. Follow the 4 regulative principles. You can't circumvent those in any way and expect to be, a disciple. A disciple means discipline. Disciple means discipline. The same word is there, disciple, discipline. Not like, Guru, you got your program and I got my program, let's discuss, then maybe we can come to some compromise somewhere. And I'm not saying all these things just as eulogies. These are actual realities in today's life. How people will find different ways to get around the instructions, or find, not even look for the instructions and simply do whatever they want and call it devotional service. Okay, so Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments?
Thank you, Guru Maharaj, for this really instructive class on following the spiritual master's instructions I would like to know how we can develop this implicit faith, this unflinching faith in the spiritual master.
By hearing regularly. Hearing, and if you don't have it, if you don't understand, then ask questions for clarification. When all of your doubts are eradicated, your faith is there. Present your doubts. Prabhupada said, bring forth your doubts. Don't keep them in the background and allow them to linger and then cause you to lose your enthusiasm in your devotional service. Bring forth your doubts, get them cleared, and then move forward nicely. So whatever doubts you may have, present them in the form of questions. We may doubt the instructions, we may doubt the process, or we may doubt our ability to execute the process. Our doubts can go in at least three areas. We may even doubt that Krishna is God. You know. So get rid of your doubts. And there's people who read the big Bhagavad Gita and also can recite verses from the Gita, but they don't have no knowledge of Krishna, and nor do they even believe that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Although he says it throughout the Bhagavad Gita. You want to make advancement, we have to fine-tune our consciousness to really understand deeper how to execute the instructions and how to execute the process. Chant without offense. Read, but read to understand. Associate with an opportunity to serve, not just do the activity. Mm-hmm. Worship with an opportunity to offer your love to Krishna in the form of that worship. So all of these activities have a particular, what's the word? In other words, a focus that makes the activities spiritually successful. So what was your question?
How to develop unflinching faith in the spiritual master.
Yeah, keep hearing and get your doubts eradicated. That's it.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Yeah. It's not wrong to have doubts. It's wrong to keep the doubts and then accept them as being, valid.
So what if one is a little bit afraid of presenting these misgivings, doubts, thinking, but what will my spiritual master think of me if I, reveal this side of me, or reveal that I have all these, problems or obstacles or challenges or whatever it is. One may feel very ashamed. Or
what do you think all of these seminars and discussions and sanghas are for? To discuss philosophical teachings. And even in the process of discussion, you find that your questions get answered, your doubts get eradicated. Just like I can tell you for an example, how to present this. Like Prabhupada said. He said, if we don't discuss daily this problem of sex life, our movement will grow weak. Our movement will grow weak. Because people will keep these doubts or keep these subtle desires for sex desire in their mind and in their heart. And they won't talk about them. and they act like they're not even there sometimes. But to discuss them, you bring them to the forefront, you see them for what they are, and then you can overcome them with transcendental knowledge. But if you don't talk about them, just like we had that discussion, I think it was about 2 weeks ago. I went right, we talked about this subject in detail. And I can see the devotees were a little bit uncomfortable, but that's good. That's good, because it has to come out in a atmosphere where in that atmosphere you get clear understanding, and the atmosphere is proper. If it comes out in an atmosphere where it doesn't, then it may also turn into something different, although it is not bona fide. So that's why sadhu sangha. What do? Bodhyantas prarasparam katyantas chimam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. We discuss. Mm-hmm. And you'll see every time there's discussion, so many points that are mentioned in the lecture get clarified. So many points that didn't come up in the lecture come up and give us further understanding of the subject matter. So that's why we ask for questions to bring about these doubts or whatever clarifications.
I have another question, but I can wait till later, if that's okay.
Is there anyone else that has a question? I don't think there's anyone. Oh yeah, we have Mataji there.
Hare Krishna, thank you for the lecture.
Are you sure?
Yes,
okay.
Sure.
Okay, thank
Very
you.
sure. What about this to accept instruction of our authority? Because sometimes that we don't agree with instruction of our authority.
Then you question it with the idea to get a clarification, to come to an agreement, or maybe even to change it so there's an instruction that is more appropriate for the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not wrong to question any instructions. Even when you get instructions from the spiritual master, you can question them. But you can't disobey them. You have to question them for clarification, for authorization, for application, all of these things.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, it's not wrong to question. In fact, it's encouraged. Anything else?
So Maharaj, what does exactly mean to know the mood of the spiritual master? So that means that we should be in the same mood, or what does, because I think Prabhupada has many...
I've seen spiritual masters reject aspiring disciples because the moods were different. Yeah, I won't name any names, but I've seen that happen. You know, you're not my disciple. You just don't have my same mood I have, or you can't understand. So I've seen that, and you'll see one of the reasons why disciples don't follow strictly is because of that mood is different. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they look to other gurus and get instructions from them because they find that mood is more in line with them. But that you should do ahead of time before the initiation. Mm-hmm. 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 The mood is not so much what they emphasize in their talks. The mood is how they conduct themselves in devotional service and express that conduct in the way they speak and in the way they expect their disciples to follow, in other words. Everyone has their mood, you know. Well, sometimes we also see the emphasis also. I was discussing this with Prahlad Maharaj yesterday. And he was saying some gurus, they emphasize, you know, chanting Harinam, book distribution. Others will emphasize more Varnashram. Others will emphasize, you know, other aspects of devotional service. His point was that we shouldn't be so limited. We should be able to express Krishna consciousness in a completely open area where there are so many. It's not that each sannyasi or guru does everything, but they should support everything. In other words, even though maybe I might not support deity worship as the main thing, still I will glorify deity worship and explain the importance of it. I might emphasize Harinam and book distribution as the main thing, but still I don't, disagree with others who don't have that mood. They may have a different approach to Krishna consciousness. Like we have Bhakti Raghava Swami, he's simply in the mood of Varnashram. Or, you know, simple living, cow protection, farm communities. I mean, he's focused on that 100%, if you're looking for someone who's really... And you'll see others who are focused on doing as distributing as many books as possible. Others are focusing on giving education to their disciples, educating their disciples more and more in the Shastras. All of these activities are part of devotional service. You see the moods are different. But even though one particular spiritual leader will emphasize a particular mood, he should also support all of the other moods too. And say, well, you know, if you're not doing this mood, or you're not doing this particular service, you're not up to the standard then. No. Because Prabhupada gave us all of these things as a society.
Thank you, Maharaj.
So this particular pastime of Aditi appealing to her husband, at one point Kashyap Muni says, alas, how much this world has affection for kids, for children, because she is longing for her children and she's longing to see them again. And then she asks, please show me what I can do to please the Lord so my children can get back their opulence, their position and so on. And then he gives her this Payavrata ceremony. But my brain just can't get around this, that how is it that we are glorifying this? Because today, if some lady, I'm not asking this in a challenging mood, I'm asking because I want to understand. If some lady in our congregation is weeping and crying, I've lost my child, I want my child back, or somehow get me my child back, we would tell her, you're not this body, the child is not the body, and you know, these things happen, and karma, and this thing. We won't tell her to do Payavrata ceremony so her child comes back to life or something like that. But here, she is praying for the Lord to bring her children back to her. And how is this devotional service? I'm not able to understand.
Well, they're demigods. They have positions in the universal arrangement. The whole universal arrangement's thrown out of proportion now. the demons are in control, just like when Hiranyakashipu became powerful. He wanted to make that if you perform impious activities, you get liberation, and if you want to perform pious activities, you get condemnation. He wanted to change the laws of karma. So yeah, when the demons are in control, there's chaos. Just like now. Illicit sex, intoxication, all of these sinful activities go on as ways of life. But in Vedic culture, you would be punished for this. Yeah, you would be a criminal if you committed these 4 activities. But now, if you're doing it, and you're doing it in style, you're considered to be, a good member of society. So that means the demons are in control in terms of directing the social and political affairs of the world, The value system is upside down. So yeah, we want now the demigods to come back and take over. And that's Lord Chaitanya's movement for purifying the world, bringing. So we have the same situation now. But Lord Chaitanya has come, and he's given the formula. Chant the holy names, and engage in devotional service, and spread this everywhere.
So, do we consider this activity of Aditi coming under the Akama Sarva Kamo Va Moksha Kama Udharadi verse, which says that whatever one desires, one should worship the Supreme Lord. Even if one doesn't have any desires, one should worship the Lord, or if one desires liberation. So, should we consider that even if we have material desires, she's doing the right thing by approaching the Lord for whatever it is? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we can conclude here, unless there's
there is a question online, Guru Maharaj.
Okay.
This is from Avadut Rai Das. 2 statements from Prema Vivarta. One who fully understands the truth about Krishna's name, form and qualities, and thus performs bhakti, is an advanced devotee. And the other one who does not understand these truths but chants the holy name of Krishna with undivided faith is an advanced devotee. Question: How without knowledge of Krishna's name, form and qualities one can get undivided faith?
Obviously, there's some knowledge there. Otherwise, how are they chanting? But they may not have full knowledge. There's some knowledge. Otherwise, the activity, they're chanting and they have faith. So where did that faith come from? Well, they might have got that faith from someone else who instilled that faith in them by their own devotional activities. But the fact that they're doing the activity, it means they have some understanding. But compared to the first one, their understanding is much less. It's not even near it. There has to be something. Well, why would you do it at all? But it's not developed as it is in the first statement. It's just preliminary faith. As Prabhupada said, he used the example. The child may not know, but the father will teach the child, and the child will learn from the father. Still, the child will not know, but the child has faith in the father, and so he simply repeats what the father says. Because he has faith, that this is the right thing, although he's not doing, doesn't have the knowledge of the activity, still he has faith in the instructions.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. So many points to reflect and meditate on in today's class. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll stop here. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. So tomorrow you can begin the new chapter, 17.